I said, I just backed away from it, and I became interested in, what's this production thing? And as a student of the music and a writer about it, and meeting many, many people in the course of my writing, I said, maybe that would be, maybe, you know, I felt some affinity for possibility there, for an expression of what talent I had. And as I say, I got to know a lot of musicians. I got to know a lot of executives, and one of them was Jack Holzman, who was the founder and creator of Elektra Records. And he loved my writing, and he was always very, very the guy I would see from time to time. And he called me one day, he and a friend named Danny Fields, who worked for Elektra at the time. And they said they had this new band, and they were sort of really excited about it, but they didn't know what to do with it. And he said, we'd like you to come out as a consultant. We'll pay you a fee to just come out and consult. We want you to see the band and give us your notes. Just give us your notes. So I go out to see the band, and this band, which was the MC5, were incredible. They're an incredible band. And live, I saw them at I think it was the Grandi Ballroom in Detroit, and live, they had the first 15 minutes of their show. I would still put it in the top 5 of just pure peak experiences in terms of excitement, just sheer excitement. You could not believe what you were seeing. I couldn't. The problem was that they dropped the atomic bomb in the first 15 minutes, and then
play out the rest of the
right. What's the rest of the set going to be?
But I loved them, and anyway, I go home and I write up this obsessively detailed thing about every single song, each of the guys, where this one sounds like shit on this song, this one sounds fabulous on that song. This song, what is this song doing in the middle of the set? Because it was going to be a live recording. They were Jack was trying to shape what the live recording would be a little bit. Anyway, he says, look, I want you to come back for the recording. So I come back from the recording, and I see the band, and they're off on the side at sound check, and they're all in a circle. I come over, and they're all looking at these pieces of paper. And what they're looking at is the memo that I sent to Jack, which I never intended for them to read. And the great, great Wayne Kramer looks up at me. They were intimidating people. They were intimidating, just as
they're a gang.
Their vibe.
Right.
And I was very, sort of whatever. And he looked at me and he said, are you the asshole who wrote all this shit? So I said, I'm afraid so. Sorry, guys. So I met them all when I did come out on the first trip. So he says, well, you do make some good points here. Now, what about this? And they started going over it with me. They started going over the document with me. Anyway, they go ahead and they make their Kick Out the Jams album.
Incredible record, yeah.
Incredible record. And they go traveling around, touring, and they were controversialists. They created controversy wherever they went. They were hyper political, and they just were out there to shake things up, to really
Yeah,
shake
John
things
Sinclair, right? And,
Huh?
with John Sinclair with them too,
Well,
right?
right. And then they separated from John, and at a certain point, and they got dropped from Elektra because they got into some controversies that Jack Holzman just said, enough, this is not for me. And so they were free. So I had become friendly with Jerry Wexler, who with Ahmed was the greatest record executive of his time. And I'd become friendly because I wrote so much about R&B, and so many of the records I wrote about were records that artists that Jerry had either signed or produced for Atlantic Records, often with Ahmed. And they called me and said, we don't have a contract. We'd all become pretty friendly. So I called Jerry. I said, Jerry, do you want the MC5? I've never done anything like this in my life at that point. You want to sign the MC5? I just heard that they're free agents. So Jerry said to me, what do you think? So I said, Jerry, they're great. They're just great. They have nothing to do with what you like. It's not like Jerry would ever sit and listen to an MC5 record and enjoy it. But I said, they're just great, and implying good as well that they were going to be a success. So he said, well, tell them, right? I'll sign them if you produce them. And that was my beginning.
Yeah.
Guess you're a record producer now. Yeah.
And I went and did
back in the USA.
Back in the USA.
Great record. I mean,
yeah, I know. It sounds
earlier,
like the title I one later. And and so it was sort of you could either say the blind leading the blind or the deaf leading the deaf. But I got in the studio and I managed to stay one step ahead of them. And we made this record, which didn't do well at the time,
right?
But went on to become acknowledged, especially in Europe, as a sort of proto-punk classic.